Richard Bandler is completely aware of it, and he uses it psychically. I guarantee you he is psychic. He even talks about elicitation. They use that word in the spy trade. Elicitation is the term applied to the subtle extraction of information during an apparently normal and innocent conversation. Because these people know. They know what you reveal this way. The larger mind, the entities that they're in tune with, will try to guide them about people. A lot of the touching of the nose and grabbing of the ear, they call these things thought tags or thought labels. I mean, you can do that with things like phonetically accelerated hypnotic commands, sure, but if you're psychic, you can invoke them that way. This is what I'm talking about. These type of anchors. It is this knowledge that made it possible for them to create neuro-linguistic programming. So, anyway, let me get back to the discussion, okay? Understand, I hope you listened to The Healing Begins Now before this, or you're just not going to have an understanding of what I'm talking about. Remember, you have this consciousness, this disconnected energy that's kind of plugged into everybody, right? Well, part of the way it separates you from the larger part of you is hijacking this normal way of sustaining life. This is the new language, actually, your old language. You see, you can have linear words, you can have speech and gestures and all these things to coordinate with life, sure. But without the navigational guide, without the connection to the assistance of the larger mind, you're lost. And so they took that away from you and created things like psychology so that anybody would know that would speak of these things. You'd say, you're delusional, or you're reading into things. Oh, so I guess every single spiritual elder that has ever walked the face of earth was delusional, huh? Oh, okay, and that includes Christ? Delusional, huh? Christ knew this. People, every animal knows this. This is how they get by. This is exactly how they get by. But these demons, derivatives of the larger consciousness, hijack this process. Let's use football again. Think of like starting an offensive play, and you send out 3 pass receivers. So you're going to have 3 pass defenders. They're going to try to intercept that football or block it. Demons will do the same thing. Why? Because to attack life on Earth and everything, they have to assess how Earth communicates with itself. But they are aware of scalar reality, so they know that you need to be disconnected from that. And you are somewhat, because I told you that this consciousness will unplug certain parts of the larger scalar mind of Earth from you. You know, the parts that it uses of you to see itself as I. And then plugs into it so it can use you to see itself as I. And it's kind of half and half right now. In each person. Well, depending. Under the bell-shaped curve, the averages, it's half and half. For example, and it's not always like this, okay? For a person like me, it will be. But not for the average person. But if I were talking to that guy in front of the gas station, say a demon wanted to mess him up, well, the woman walking by that anchored him with yeah, her response would have been no, and her conscious mind would have rationalized why. I wouldn't have cleared my throat to a positive thought, it would have been to a negative one. Instead of saying, there you go, to the pizza, maybe I would have said something like, that's crazy, you know, or something like that. They can play your ego just like the spirit can play your ego. Absolutely. But what did I tell you? I told you when you have the love in your heart and the intention of love for everything you see, demons can't touch that. They just can't. I mean, you'll see that for yourself. It's like when you can look through a person's body and their ego, whatever personality they may think they have, and see the larger reality, the larger intention, you fall in love with people again. It's a wonderful feeling to actually care about people again. And demons can't touch that. And they know they can't touch that. Because you're talking about the creative spirit, man. If you're on its behalf, it's going to back you up. And it's going to back up anybody you talk to. It won't override their attempt. Because your intentions are good, you see. Your intentions are of love. And so love will rise up and take command of your ego. And the demon can't get around that defense. The demon can play your mind like nothing. But love, like I told you in The Healing Begins Now, takes command of the ego. It commands all structure. So it doesn't matter how many demons are trying to mess with a conversation. If you're trying to mislead somebody, if you're trying to do something in a detached fashion, or you're not interacting on behalf of the creative spirit, then a demon can mess with it. No problem. No problem whatsoever. Because my example of the ego, or the conscious mind, is kind of like a piece of clay on a potter's wheel. No, of course, not exactly like that, but it's a good metaphor. It's always set in motion, it's always spinning. All right? But what is taking its hands and putting it on that piece of clay to mold it can be variable. It could be the spirit, or it could be mind control, technological mind control, subliminal messages, entities. Think of a person's personality kind of like a instant messenger chat window. When you're speaking to somebody with instant messaging, you have one chat username, and everything that comes through in the form of text, you attribute to that one username. But you don't know if at that person's home, if 5 different people come by and type something and hit enter, because it will all come through under that one username. At most, you'd be like, you're kind of up and down, or kind of like a split personality. Well, the personality is obviously more than a username. It can think, it can calculate, it has a history, a memory, but it's always spinning in emotion. Mind control is, when you're talking about psychic mind control, it's not like your mind is negotiating with it. It's more like, my thoughts are your thoughts. That's how they control your ego. For example, if they want to think for you, they just think in your voice from the first person. That would be psychic control of your mind. I think this, I think that, whatever. And then you're thinking it. Love can defend against that. It just does. All right? I'm telling you. You really need to connect to the creative spirit. Now, why am I telling you about this language? Because this is the language of life. And what will happen is, first of all, you need to understand something. It's kind of like playing guitar. All right? Say you've never played guitar before, but it appeals to you. Or any instrument, but I'll use guitar. And you want to play guitar, and you pick up a guitar, and you're thinking to yourself, oh, I want to play this Dave Matthews song. You've never played before. You don't have the calluses formulated on your fingertips. You don't have the muscular strength in your fingers, the neuromuscular coordination to play. And you play, and it's just like one string at a time. And you're sitting there, you're struggling, you're trying to get each finger on each string, and you feel totally uncoordinated. It's just muted and sounds awful. Now, a lot of people do that, and they're pissed because they assume they're going to be able to play their favorite guitarist music, and they can't. And then they give up right away. Screw this. It's too hard. But for any of you that haven't given up, you know. You stick with it, you start to get the calluses, you get the strength in the fingers, and you can't quite get the chord yet. You can put your fingers on each string and play it, and it sounds good, but you can't just land all your fingers down at once. You look at other guitar players that can do that, and you're like, how do they do that? And they're not even looking at it either. How do they do that? Right? And you try it, maybe you go through some exercises and you screw it up, but then there's that salient moment. Maybe you take a break from guitar for a few days, right? And your brain starts rewiring. You don't even know it. Right? And then that one day you just pick up the guitar and you just, for the heck of it, you just try to play a chord all at once, and wham! You nail it. And you can't believe it. Wait a minute. I just landed all my fingers down at once. I can do it. And it just seems to happen, right? This is kind of why I was led, of course, to the Karate Kid video. You all have learned so much, you just don't know it yet. You don't know it. In your own lives, what you're going to find